Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining our Psych Cafe. We are very, very excited to have Sanjana. She is one of our now May graduates coming up, and we're very excited to hear her presentation. So, Sanjana, please go ahead. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Patricia. I'm just going to be sharing my screen. I have with me Asim, who's also part of Listening Labs, which is what I'm going to be presenting today. Asim, did you want to do a quick introduction before I?
Sure. I'm a first year graduate student in the Graduate School of Arts and Science, and I'm doing industrial and organizational psychology. Super excited to be here. And I also work with Sanjana on the Listening Lab Office of Student Wellbeing team.
Great. Before I move further, no compulsions at all, but I have a bit of an activity, which is the listening lab in itself before I present on why we did this and etc. and etc. I'm wondering if anybody feels like they're okay to volunteer to participate in this activity along with Asim. No pressures. Okay, great, Erika. Okay, I'll have Erika and Asim participate just to demonstrate this, but I'm gonna quickly share my screen so that we can move further. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, great. So this was the presentation that our team used at NASPA. So I'm just using that so that I can give you an overview of what we used. Listening labs, experiments in connection, and these were three of our facilitators who did it, who are not here, but it's just me. We usually have a pre-evaluation survey, and this is a very quick survey that we ask students to fill out just to see where they are in terms of their feelings, their moods currently, and then it takes 1 or 2 minutes for them to do this, and then we then proceed to what a listening lab is. So what is a listening lab? There are three goals for listening labs. One is to feel heard, one is to feel connected, and to strengthen listening skills. We're trying to build a community here. New York can be isolating, and NYU in specific can be really isolating. So I think this is a good tool for students to come together and connect. We've seen that it's very successful with clubs that have newly formed and have students that don't know each other to sort of break the ice and build that connection. This is a guided and structured space for sharing, and with the three goals that I mentioned, and it's a judgment-free, advice-free, and it's a welcoming space where students can feel heard and connect deeply with each other. We let students know that this is in no means therapy or counseling, nor is it an informal space for chit chat or small talk. What this is a caring container where we have authentic listening skills that we are enabling, and this is a chance to feel heard and connected. We also go through agreements and expectations. These are typically labs that we conduct for students across the board at NYU, and I had the opportunity to present it at NASPA for other schools to maybe adopt this model in their school. So the agreement and expectation is that we're again reiterating that this is not therapy and counseling because it can very much seem like a group therapy or a group setting in terms of the way that we specifically structure it, which I'm going to get to in a minute. And we also let students know that NYU has a lot of resources if they're specifically seeking that, and we ask them to call the Wellness Exchange number and also access the Wellness Exchange app. We also let them know that the vulnerability level that we are expecting is between the therapist's office, which is like too vulnerable, and you meet a stranger on an elevator, like you're like, hi, hello, and it's like too fake maybe. So we're looking at the sweet spot, which is somewhere in the middle. We let them know about this. And also 3 C's that we reiterate. One is to take care of yourself. Sometimes when you're getting vulnerable, even in that middle spot, it can be too overwhelming. And we always have 2 listening lab leaders for a lab. So we make sure that, if someone's feeling too distressed, they want a little bit of a break, we can swap in and sort of take the run from there. And we also let them know that they're here to facilitate conversation and there's no advice or judgment in this space. Another thing is courage. Sometimes when you get vulnerable, it often inspires the other person to get vulnerable and share things that they want to. So we are reiterating that as well. Confidentiality, whatever is said here stays here. I know that we are recording this, but we're demonstrating it. But otherwise, whatever is said here will stay here unless and until, someone's worried for someone's safety, they're reporting misconduct, bias, etc. When we'd have to have a conversation with the person, and we'd have to, give them appropriate resources that do exist in the university. We also let them know not to use their phones during the rest of the session. We know that we would have just asked them to pull out it for the QR code at the first, but just so that, there's authentic listening that's enabled, and we have space for them if in case they have emergencies and they have to use their phone, they can, and we'd swap in happily with them. Another important thing about listening labs is that listening labs is an entirely peer-led space. So only peers lead the space. And that's why we have all of these rules set in place, so that we feel comfortable to take them through if in case there is, a situation where someone feels that they need something to take care of themselves. With that, I'm going to jump into the listening lab in itself. And thank you so much for graciously agreeing to volunteer, Erika. So this happens in pairs or in pods of 4. So I'm going to ask Asim, I'm going to take Asim and Erika through this entire exercise and then get into why we did listening labs. Okay, so the first phase is building trust. So unfortunately, we're not, sitting in a room for you both to turn to each other, but I'm going to ask you to unmute yourselves just so that it's a little bit easier. You're going to turn towards each other. Sorry, I'm a little used to saying that, but you're going to share your names, pronouns, if that's something that you wish, and you're going to find 3 things that you have in common with your partner. And I'm going to let you know when time's up, and then maybe we can have a bit of a shout out. I'm assuming that everybody in this room would be able to hear it, but usually we'd have a bit of a shout out. Sounds good? Any clarifications?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. You both can go. I'm keeping an eye on the time.
Hi, Erica. My name's Asim, and my pronouns are he, him. And then because we're on Zoom, I do know your name. But I'm wondering if we wanted to start to find 3 things in common.
Sure.
Are you currently in New York by any chance?
Well, right now I'm in New York, and I'm Erica. My pronouns are she, her, and yes, we're both currently in New York.
Yep. Yep. I think that's one.
Okay. We're both affiliated with NYU.
Yep. I would count that almost as one.
Okay. See, you were being very truthful. I was trying to make that as 2. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. And let me just see what else.
Are you affiliated with psychology by any chance? Like, are you?
Affiliation mean where I work? Yes.
Okay.
So yes. So if we do NYU, New York, and psychology, that would be 3. So are you affiliated with NASPA?
Actually, not really. I wasn't able to visit this time. I did have a conflict with another conference. So did you go to NASPA by any chance?
No, I didn't go, but us not going is 3.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, that was really fun to watch. But this is typically how the building trust phase goes. There's a bunch of people in a room. They're in pairs or in pods of 4, and they're trying to find things in common with their neighbor. Not going to NASPA was a very brilliant one, I must say. This is the first phase, which is building trust. They're just getting to know each other. The next one is deepening connection. So here, what we have is in deepening connection, the same pair sort of sticks, or if it's a pod of 4, it's a little bit different. But for the purpose of this, I'm just demonstrating it in pairs. So again, if if they've forgotten their names and pronouns, they're going to say it again. But this time it's a little bit different. Earlier they had a conversation, but this time they're going to have specific roles. So there's one listener and then there's one sharer, and each one get their turn. So the prompt is, what's bringing you joy right now? And what happens is the sharer is going to start sharing and the listener is going to listen completely. And the only thing that the listener is allowed to say is there more, or thank you for sharing? And is there more can be in many words. You're just prompting them to say more, or you're And once, if they're done, you're going to just say, thank you for sharing. You're not going to interject, go on your own sort of tangent, or put in yourself in the conversation. We're just actively listening to the person entirely. And once, it's done, we ask them to switch, and I'll let you know when to switch. And then the listener becomes the sharer, and then the sharer becomes the listener. Sometimes I know that this is a little bit different, but what happens is sometimes, the sharer finishes much earlier than the time, and we encourage them to sit in silence, because the silence in itself can be a tool of enabling that active listening. I know we also let them know that it is hard to sit in silence, but we're not having like a staring contest, and we don't, usually like ask them to usually people just pick out their phones, which is again why we reiterate don't use of phones, because Asim likes to say that it's a security blanket for people to use their phones. So we encourage them to sit in silence, because now more often than not, we don't sit in silence. So that can be very therapeutic in many ways. So that's how this goes. So, and we also make it in a way that you don't have to choose who the sharer or the listener is first. So the prompt would be, what's bringing you joy right now? And the person whose birthday is earliest between the pair or the pod will go first as the sharer, and then I'll let you know when to switch. Are those instructions clear? I know I spoke quite a bit.
Yes.
Okay, great. So the prompt is, what's bringing you joy right now? And the person whose birthday is earliest in the year goes first, and I'll let you know when to switch. Sound good?
When's your birthday, Erica?
November.
Oh, you beat me by a month. I'm in December, so.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought it was great. Okay. What's bringing me joy right now? It is nearing the end of the semester, and that is bringing me a lot of joy. Even though this is a busy time of year, I enjoy graduation. I enjoy watching students get excited about this is their last semester. Pretty soon, graduation tickets will start going out. And I'm always excited about graduation. I love the ceremony. I love all the events that happen during this time of year. So this time of year always brings me joy. And the seasons changing. So that's the seasons and just graduation and all the excitement that's in the air on campus is really bringing me joy right now.
Is there more that you'd like to share, Erica?
No, that's pretty much it.
Thank you
Great.
for sharing.
I'm going to save you the trouble of sitting in silence due to time. Asim, you guys can switch.
All right. So I guess it's my turn to share what brings me joy right now. I would say, again, I guess what you're saying, it's kind of infectious, because you have people around you just like talking about, graduation and, the next phase in life. So I guess something that's really bringing me excitement is the summer. Whilst I'm not graduating, I am going to be embarking on a learning journey on an internship opportunity. So I'm super excited to actually apply the stuff that I've learned in my 1 year so far in my graduate program into an actual workplace applied setting. So I'm super excited about that. And what's next is the fall, right? So all of that is like super exciting to see, and the time's just going by so quick, and I just want to make the most of it. So, but all those things are sort of bringing me joy right now.
Hey, is there more?
No, I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing.
Great, you both did great. So we do have a few other prompts, which is a similar structure, and we have a repertoire of prompts that we usually choose from. And we, if someone wants to set it up, we send them to them earlier, for them to choose. We also have done very customized prompts. I remember we did one with Stanton School of Engineering, and we had one prompt that was like, what would I be if I was a video game? So very creative, sort of customizable prompts. And phase 3 is also pretty much the same. I'm just going to skip this in the interest of time. There's another prompt. We get a little bit creative as to who goes first. Like if you notice in this, we are like the person who got up earliest this morning goes first, which is a little fun for participants always. The next, I'm just skimming through. The next one is one of the most popular phases that we have, which is called the hot seat. So I know your interactions have been limited, Erica and Hasem, but what's going to happen is each one of you is going to sit in the hot seat. And why we call this in the hot seat, I'll tell you in a minute. So the person in the hot seat is going to be receiving compliments, words of affirmation, admiration. And here's the catch. The only thing that you can say is thank you, nothing else. You cannot deflect it back to the other person. You cannot be modest about it. I know we all love a bit of modesty. We are not allowed to do that in this space. We're just gonna sit there and completely soak in the compliments. I know it's a little uncomfortable, but I promise it's gonna be great. But you also have a chance to compliment the other person. I'll let you know when to switch. So the person who's sitting in the hot seat is the person who lives closest to this room. And by room, we can assume NYU. Let's go from there. Person who lives closest to NYU is the person who's going to be sitting in the hot seat, meaning that's the person who's going to be receiving compliments.
Erica, I stay in Brooklyn.
Okay, well, see, I live in New Jersey. I live very close to, we don't want to get out Google Maps, but I probably live closer. Well, I don't know, it depends. You live in Canarsie, Brooklyn?
Yes,
Oh,
not
I live
Canard.
much closer
Okay, okay.
than you.
Okay,
Okay, so I will be in the hot seat first.
correct. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I can get started. Even though it was a very short conversation, I really loved your energy. It seems like you're someone who's really pumped and really someone who uplifts students a lot. And I really appreciate that. And it was really easy to just break the ice with you and just like get the conversation started in the building trust phase. So I just wanted to say you're someone who's really a person you can have a good conversation with. And that's just the vibe that I got from this quick interaction. So thank you so much for being such an authentic listener. I felt like you were actually listening to me when I was like sharing in my prompts before. It made me feel like this person is a good ear and someone who can really be someone I can talk to well with.
Thank you.
Great. Now you can switch. Erica, it's your turn to compliment Asim.
That was, okay, that was good. Asim, I think that you seem to be very dedicated to what your research or interests are, which I find really fascinating. I know that you're much younger than me, and when I see people who are younger and are really focused on what they're interested in, and it seems that you put your whole self into it. When you were talking about your internships and things like that, that you're really taking advantage of what's going on here at NYU. You're taking advantage of the opportunities you have. And it really makes me feel great that we have such great students here. You're a reminder of why I got into the work that I do. I can tell that you really care about what you're doing, hence you're doing things that are not just related to what's in your program. The fact that you're working with listening lab and things like that really shows your dedication. You're very easy to speak to and a delight to do this with. And it just, talking to you excites me and reminds me why I'm in the work that I'm doing. I think that you're great, and I think that there's great things headed for you in the future.
Thank you so much. That was really good. Thank you.
This is so sweet. I'm getting a lot of goosebumps just hearing you all compliment each other. It always warms my heart. But that's pretty much the hot seat phase. And we are closing the container in the next phase. We don't want people to like be vulnerable and just left out in the open. So the prompt here is one thing that I want to take away from this session. And it usually differs. There's sometimes that we ask people to let them know like one thing that's going well for them and wish it for the rest of the group. And depending on the size of the group, we either just stick to the pair or do it in a bigger group. Erica and Asim, did you want to like quickly share one thing that you want to take away from this little activity that you just did?
I guess, Erica, your birthday is definitely coming up first.
Well, I think what I took away from this, what I got from is to recognize things that I do and maybe focus on why I do them. Silence is very difficult for me, and I'm quite sure people who work with me understand that as well. And why do I have an issue with silence? Or, why do I feel that maybe if I overshare, or why do I have to talk so much? So just recognizing that, and then also accepting compliments of, why do I deflect, or why is it maybe difficult for me to do that? So even though this wasn't a counseling session, it makes me think about maybe there are some things that I could think about why I do what I do. So I got out of that, and also meeting a SEM.
Thanks so much, Erica. I guess one thing that I'd like to take away from this session is that honestly, conversations can be so easy. You just have to say hello and get started. And sometimes like not being able to talk in this session really helps me as well, because I'm definitely someone in conversations, as soon as there's like a moment of silence, I feel like there's this urgent need in me to like sort of fulfill it by like, saying something and like reducing the awkwardness. But just sometimes not saying anything can help. Like I've recognized this with the labs, that it sort of like helps the other person continue their train of thought, even if it's just a moment that they're taking to recollect or think about something else that they might like to share. So I really appreciate those momentary pauses of silence in the conversation. And Erica, again, it was phenomenal meeting you, and thank you so much for volunteering to help us with this.
Great. Thank you so much, both of you. After this, we just have a quick survey usually, but that's very similar to the one that I pulled up in the front, which is a little bit more about how the activity, felt for them. I'm gonna move a little quickly, since I'm noting time, about why Listening Labs was formed. The main reason was belonging, well-being, and connection. Several studies indicate that students find themselves very lonely, they're struggling, and they would talk to peers much more than people in authority. So that's what enabled, sort of planted the seeds for this. And also, we wanted to establish active and empathetic listening, which are central skills. These goals I have covered, so I'm just going to skip it. These are a wonderful team of listening lab leaders. One of them is here, Asim, but they're a bunch of undergraduate and graduate students from diverse departments and schools, just so that we can cater to a broader community. There are different types of listening labs. There are 15-minute, 30-minute, 45, and 60-minute length labs that we've offered. We usually do embedded labs, meaning we go to a club and we're like, if you have an event, can we do the lab at the start? And then, you can do your club event later. We've done a bunch from several classes, departments, and groups. Pop-ups are individual listening labs that we do. We find that the embedded ones are a little bit more effective because the students come in for a purpose, actually. This is typically what the flow is, which I just took you through with Asim and Erika. But yeah, these are some of the prompts, and this is how the phases go. We've done a bunch of listening labs with various departments. We've also done it with the NYU global sites. We've done it with NYU Madrid. We're in talks with Shanghai to do it. We've done it online. We've done it in person, but we've done it with a bunch of diverse groups across the campus. A little bit about best practices about the structures that we need to get ahead before, just to make sure the room, most of the labs that we do are in person. So we make sure that we get there before time to make sure the room is set up, the chair is set up, we have good tech. And it's always better to like coordinate with teams before to get choice of prompts, make sure that they're clear with expectations, just so that everything is set on board. We also like the embedded model, as I mentioned, that gives us a little bit more flexibility to get a bit more participants. And this was very much a pilot project. The team had to do entire grassroots campaigning. I think we also put on all of our marketing hats. It was very much like building a startup from scratch. That was something that we had to do in terms of scalability. Initially, it was hard to get labs, but now I think we have a very happy problem of our schedules being very full and we don't know which labs that we can go to. Also, it's an entirely peer program. We also increased the capacity of it by introducing a volunteer program where people could apply to be listening lab leaders, and sort of spread the seeds a little bit more. This is a little bit about data and what it has revealed so far. As you can see, most of the emotions that we typically label as negative emotions, like feeling lonely, stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, etc., have significantly gone down. And positive emotions like being calm, feeling heard, relieved, unburdened, connected, and understood significantly go up after the lab. So this is typically what we had for 1,000 unique participants at NYU, and 93% said they would do another lab, and 96% suggested that they would recommend it to a friend or a peer. This is a bit of a qualitative data snapshot, but I think the best part of the qualitative data is that I got a new friend, which we keep hearing again and again, and it sort of warms my heart. Um, and yeah, it just helps people like connect with each other, and people open up. They're really surprised by the way in which they open up, but this is a snapshot of qualitative data pieces that we have collected from this initiative. That's pretty much the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any like questions. I know we have like just 2 to 3 minutes, if I'm not wrong. Happy to take any questions, anything that anyone feels pressing. Happy to answer anything.
Well, I have a question. I want to know, when did you decide that this is something that, how did you get involved with Listening Lab?
Um, so it was actually a job posting on Handshake that I got involved in. But the seeds were planted by Zoe Raguzuos and Yale Shai and Jason Walczyk, who work with the Office of Student Wellbeing Initiatives. And Yale Shai was the director of Mindful NYU and also used to teach at Wagner, if I'm not wrong. So they all came together and they were like, you know what, we want to do something where students feel a little connected and there's peer-to-peer support, but necessarily not peer counseling, which is why there's a lot of agreements, expectations, and the structure that it has. So I came across it through Handshake, and I was involved in the project when it started rolling out, which was January of last year. That's when they initially like piloted it to NYU, and I've been with them ever since. And the initiative like really like stuck to me, so I've been working with them for over a year now.
Do you think that this, what you're learning in Listening Lab, how well, not does it, but is it related to things that you've learned on your internship? Or have you incorporated this into things that you've done working with your clients while you're on internship?
No, absolutely, I think I have, because I'm very much a person who cannot sit in silence as well. If you ask Qasim, he's going to tell you tales about how I keep yapping. um, And I think in the work that I'm doing with my clients, silence is a very important tool. And I've learned a lot of silence from this. I've also learned that sometimes it's good to give someone else space to run their own stories rather than to like interject. I've had a lot of transferable skills from each facet going into each other. I think I've channeled not that you need to be like a counselor, as you can see, there are people from like diverse groups, like diverse like schools who are part of this program. But I've channeled a bit of that into this, and then I've channeled the skills that I've learned from here to my clients as well.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds fascinating and it sounds wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Erika. We appreciate your enthusiasm and volunteering.
Thanks.
Well, I do think that those are our questions for now, but this will be posted on YouTube for viewing for later. And just really want to once again thank you for your hard work, Sanjana, for doing this presentation and for going out there and doing multiple presentations on this. I think it's a great topic, and I was just thinking personally, like maybe within like certain like offices around campus. I mean, I saw like the list of people you've talked to, you've done this, and it's like this could definitely be a wide resource for pretty much anybody. So I think you've done a fantastic job. And thank you again for taking the time to present. And thank you everybody for showing up. And I think that's pretty much it. But thank you again. Really, really appreciate it. And congratulations on graduating. Very, very proud of you. You were one of my advisees, so I'm extremely
Aw.
happy with all the work that you've done. You've gone
Thank
above
you
and
so
beyond.
much. Thank you so much, Patricia. I appreciate it, Patricia. Patricia has been such a big support for me in my entire journey here at NYU. Yeah, and it just warms my heart that I did it right before I'm graduating. Yeah. And thank you so much, Asim, for helping out as well.
Yes, thank you again. So I'm going to stop recording.